Good afternoon. All right, all right, all right. So today what we're working on is primarily Q&A, although I don't know if you're driving or not, but
Yeah,
paid ads.
yeah, I'm driving.
Okay, got it. So today we're primarily the plan today for the paid ads mastermind was primarily Q&A. Did you have any like specific questions around what's working, what's not working in when it comes to from an advertising perspective?
Yeah, I've always been wondering on the ad side of things. I know a lot of people say that video is working really, really well, maybe like a
Yep.
series or a strategy where you can also create audiences and target them later, but I've never got into making anything that complex
Got it.
yet. So,
Yeah, so I know you're driving, so like I would share my screen and kind of show you, but since you're driving, we'll talk through this. So, um, are you primarily buyer heavy, or are you primarily listing heavy? And like what like when we're talking about strategy wise, like what are you trying to go after primarily?
I wouldn't mind going after sellers, even though my business has been composed of 80% buyers, 20%
Got it.
sellers ever
Okay,
since.
so yeah, so right now, like a big focus for us with clients that we're working with across North America, with like primarily, are you in Canada or the US?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto.
You're in Toronto. Okay. So
Yeah,
obviously you're following, what's happening in the US right now with the NAR settlement and, buyer compensation, kind of the splits and everything. So we have a lot of clients
yeah.
that are really splitting their marketing spend, 60/40, 50/50, 70/30, more heavy towards sellers. The only platform that allows you to target homeowners is going to be YouTube natively. Now, so when we run YouTube ads when we're running YouTube ads directly for sellers, what we're doing with YouTube with sellers is we're targeting them directly in a way that allows us to actually run ads directly to them. So let me show you. I can't show you, but I'm gonna share my screen because Philly just joined us here as well.
Yeah, no
So
problem. I'm actually stuck in traffic, so I can look at it.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. So what we're doing, my team is doing a lot of right now. So what our head media buyer Sebastian has a background running ads for large brands. So something we're running as of recent is something we call performance max campaigns. So what that is it's a mixture. It's called over the top ads. So it's a mixture of Google ads, YouTube ads, display ads, retargeting ads, all wrapped up into one campaign. So what that would look like, for example, here is YouTube ads as a platform where why it works so well in comparison to other platforms. Like for example, like we're getting $70 leads, seller leads, but they're higher intent. And the reason they're higher intent is because unlike Facebook, unlike Instagram, unlike TikTok, all those platforms were due to housing due to the housing category require that we run a broader audience, meaning so when you're running your seller ads on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, you're running them also to people that are renting. So where the problem that becomes is we chatted about this in the past, and this is actually I think in the portal, um we where I talk about making sure we're targeting the right audience. So what are the mistakes that a lot of people will do is they'll spend their money on the wrong platform for the wrong type of marketing. So what I mean by that is like on Google and on YouTube, what you can do is you can actually target via audience. So for example, this campaign for this client in Vegas, what we're doing is we have a couple audience segments that we're running directly to that audience. And this gives us the opportunity and affords us the ability in order to actually run ads directly to homeowners. So what we mean by that is when I click on sellers, we have the opportunity and we have the ability in order to target a specific demographic. So I could, for example, here type in homeowner. And what's going to happen is it's going to allow us to only put our ads in front of people who own a home or an apartment and still have a mortgage, because Google and YouTube have that in-market data where Facebook and Instagram and TikTok don't. So what we always say, like, if you want to have like a holistic marketing plan, or if you have like a marketing budget and you say, hey, I want to spend 50% of my marketing budget towards sellers, 50% towards buyers. Well, we would want to spend all the money targeting the sellers on YouTube and Google, and all the marketing on Facebook for more brand heavy. So because the nice thing about YouTube running a Performance Max campaign is you get the mixture of both branding and you get the mixture of high intent. So what you can also do as a sub-segmented audience is, we call this a double stack campaign. And what it is on YouTube, what you can do is you can actually target people. Like, say for example, you're like, we have clients, or I have a client right now, Adam, who is running specific ads to people that are interested in refinancing a mortgage. So if you have a lending officer that you are partnering with, and they're doing, you want to essentially split the budget, you can have a mortgage refinancing campaign running to people who are interested in refinancing or an existing mortgage. You also have where that in-market data is not available on Facebook, Instagram, and it's not available on TikTok. You're running more of what we call a broad campaign. So the other thing with the double stack campaign, so we can actually we can target based off of life event as well. So we can double stack. We can say, okay, these are homeowners, and these are also people who are preparing to buy a home, because Google, based on search intent, already has that information ready available to them. And we could also target based off of zip code or based off of a specific postal code. So say, for example, you wanted to drop a pin on, in, let's call it Leaside. Say, for example, you were targeting specifically, you're like, your lead cost might be more, but then it becomes more of a farming effort versus more of like a broad campaign. So you can you still have the ability with YouTube to do more farming, where you don't have that ability with a Facebook or Instagram. Now, supplementary to that, you technically could do a variation of that on Facebook, but what that will require you to do is to go to your title rep to purchase the data from them, or to get the data from them and upload that data to Facebook, and rely on Facebook's AI matching in order to do that. Where the problem becomes with the farming is you can only run a minimum of 15-mile radius. So even though you upload the data, you're still relying on Facebook's AI in order to make sure that it places the ad in the right area. Does that make sense? I know I went through a lot. Any questions there, Aldo? Any questions there, Philly, around how that would work? I think you guys are muted here. No. Okay.
No.
So I like to keep these interactive. Like, have you guys ever explored Google Ads? Have you ever explored Performance Max ads? Have you ever explored running anything like this to get sellers?
I'm a baby when it
Okay.
comes to ads. I just want to start crawling. And so when I'm back on Sheridan, I just want to be able to be ready. So I'm a big baby when it comes to this. Yeah.
So, like, from a strategy perspective, what we would ideally, depending on it, because your strategy will depend on, like, your budget will dictate your strategy. So if you're saying, hey, like, what I always say to clients here, I'll share my iPad and I'll go through this. Whenever I'm doing private consulting with clients that come in and they're like, hey, can you personally run my ads versus, having having one of your team members run your ads? I do that for a select group of agents, but this essentially is the strategy. So you guys can see my iPad screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe. Okay, awesome. So if we're running a Performance Max ad, let's go through the top end strategy. So I would call this, the lead flow matrix. Now you have two different options you can make. So you can either, like, if you look at a funnel, if you look at kind of like a Facebook / IG funnel, versus like a performance max, they serve two different purposes. So the Facebook and IG funnel, essentially how that's going to work is going to work very similar to this. So let me kind of like draw this out really quick. So in a Facebook and IG funnel, what we're looking at here, let me just draw this out really quick. Yeah. So on a Facebook and IG funnel, how we're looking at how we essentially view the funnel at a holistic level is like, say for example, we have 100 leads. That's essentially, you know, in Facebook and IG, generally they're going to provide you 100 leads, and it's going to cost you about $10 a lead. On average, that's what we're seeing right now. So, you know, if you spend $1,000, you're going to get 100 leads. Now, generally, when we're looking at the 100 leads, when we're talking about like quality conversations, and obviously there's skill, and like, you know, some of you guys are in some of you guys are in Triz. If you're listening back to the replay, some of you guys are in Triz, and you can, you know, increase the level of conversation simply by, you know, having the right scripting for these leads. But I'm not going to talk about that right now. I'm just going to kind of focus on like the numbers. So if you have 100 leads, you're going to have about 10 to 20 conversations that are quality. So that's pretty, you know, pretty across the board. Like, you know, we're talking about like, you know, convos. And then in there on a Facebook, you're going to have about 1 to 3 that are going to close. Anyone telling you any differently just isn't true. Like that, those are the numbers. Like, so on a Facebook and Instagram funnel, you're going to have 100 leads, you're going to have 10 to 20 quality conversations, and you're going to have about 1 to 3 sales that should close from those 100 leads. Obviously that requires nurture, a whole bunch of other things. So generally a Facebook and IG funnel will be great for what we would call like a buyer campaign. Now, why people run these campaigns is twofold. So why somebody like a team would spend $1,000 a month on, you know, these types of leads is over time, they're going to convert. Now they're not going to convert right away, but over time through nurture, you're going to convert these leads. So what happens is this becomes more of like a database build. So say for example, like, you know, teams will run these types of ads in order to generate opportunities for their team members. Now, that might not be super conducive to a single agent, depending on what their long-term goals are. Now, if you couple Facebook and IG funnel with like a deal of the week, that's where you're going to see more hands get raised. So, you know, if you do a Facebook and an IG funnel, you're going to want to couple it with like an email or a text message you send out every single week to these people to get them to raise their hand about a specific property. So that would be what I would call like the Facebook and IG funnel, but that would be a database build. What we were talking about earlier was like a performance max campaign. Now, the performance max campaign is going to look a little different. I don't know what's happening here, why it's not giving me. There we go. There we go. There's that. So performance max campaigns, the approach to this campaign is going to look a little different. So the approach to this campaign is going to be essentially, let's call it, you know, 30 leads. In here, under the 30 leads, what's going to happen is, you know, like on a performance max campaign, you're primarily going to target sellers because we, like I mentioned earlier, we can target homeowners. So now with this type of campaign, if like this becomes more of a farming focus. So what you're going to want to couple with this is like a mailing strategy. So there is a company on the marketplace right now called Thanks.io. And for you, Aldo, this actually, Thanks.io actually works in Canada. And it's essentially a direct mail campaign with like a handwritten note. So this campaign, we're going after less leads, but we're going after higher intent, and we're going after like a quicker conversion cycle. Generally, we see with this. So 30 leads, Your lead cost here is going to cost you anywhere from $50 to $100 a lead. So you're going to spend more. Now, say for example, I'm just using 30 leads as an example right now. Generally, what our clients are seeing from here is about 10 to 20 conversations that are essentially created. Now, these are seller-specific leads. So their property, their property address, their name, their email address, their phone number. And generally what our clients are seeing is about 1 to 3 deals from that. Now, coupled with this, it just becomes a better strategy for somebody that like doesn't want to sift through 100 leads to get 1 to 3 sales. It's generally sifting through 20 to 30 leads in order to get 1 to 3 sales. So for the single agent, it becomes a lot more conducive to spend your money here and couple it with like a mailing strategy where you essentially like would send out a handwritten note via thanks.io. And I'll show you kind of what that would look like. So we have some clients that I do some private consulting with, and there's a program that we use called thanks.io. And what it does is it actually allows us to directly integrate with our CRM, or it integrates with pretty much any CRM. And when, say, for example, a lead ops in Aldo or a lead ops in Philly, and they give us their name, their email address, and their phone number, we're in a relationship-based business. Well, if we truly believe we're in a relationship-based business, how good would a homeowner feel getting, opt in, and all of a sudden they get a personal handwritten note to you? So this is essentially what a personal handwritten, and this is something we've implemented for our own business. So this essentially is what the handwritten note would look like. So because of what we call custom values, what we're able to do is we're actually able to handwrite a note. So in here, what we can do, 100%, they're going to feel more connected. So like, for example, when new clients, join our program now, this is something new we just started doing, is like, hey, just Cody and Vikram here at Sheridan Street, the Trust Report Influence Sales Program. We wanted to personally reach out and welcome you to the Trist Sales Program. Also say thank you for our business. This actually, so this AI actually goes out and they build out everything in the AI, and they do everything on the back end. So they handwrite the note for you. So it works out to be about like, per note, it works out to be about like $1.47 a note, and it's like $49 a month. But if you wanted to do like, because you have an option, you can either go digital or you can go traditional. I always say do a little bit of both, because rather than just sending a handwritten note randomly to somebody that may or may not be interested in possibly selling their home, let's get the handwritten note in front of the person that raised their hand. So like Philly said, if we get that handwritten note in front of somebody that raised their hand, they're going to feel more important. They're going to feel more connected to you. So that when we're talking about strategy, and we're talking about marketing spend and marketing budget, I always say to our clients that I'm doing private consulting with, and if anyone has listened back to the replay where we did a full day training session called the 7-Figure Summit. We did it in August with Sharon. I kind of walked everyone through kind of this matrix that I call the traffic matrix. So where people get confused in online and digital marketing is this. So they come in and they think, okay, all I got to do is digital, but in all reality, there's actually what we call the 3 buckets. I'm going to explain to you what I mean by the 3 buckets. So when we're thinking about like a traffic matrix, like they all play into each other. Like I'm actually going to move them because they all play in, like they don't have to, but they should. So what I mean by this when I'm talking about the traffic matrix is there's, your paid strategy, there's your organic strategy, and then there's your traditional strategy. So you'll hear a lot of gurus in the space talk about, they'll throw around words like 6 lead sources, but the problem is the vast majority of agents don't actually know what that means. So I want to break that down for you from a strategy perspective. So what I mean by the traffic matrix is paid can be a bunch of different things. I lump paid into, Facebook. It could be Zillow. It could be, what we chatted about, Performance Max. Paid could also be IG. Paid could be an array of different things. And, like some people will say, oh, just focus on your SOI, just focus on your SOI. And it's like, well, that's not how you grow. That's not how you create consistency, because your SOI is not always transacting. So what paid does, it acts as a supplementary. I was chatting with an agent. I chatted with 2 agents. I wrote a post about this the other day. And both agents I spoke to, actually, let me see if I can find it really quickly here for you, because I wrote it on social. So both agents I spoke to yesterday, one agent decided to work with us. The other agent decided that it wasn't the right time. But both of them have a problem. And paid solves a lot of these problems that you have in business. We always run ads. So these were their stats, because whenever I get on a call with a client, I always ask them the stats. So one was, okay, I did 500K in 2021, I did 400K in 2022, I did 200K in 2023, and so far I've done $50,000 this year. This is a byproduct. These numbers are a byproduct of one of 2 things: either consistency in skill or consistency in marketing. And the other one was 200K in 2021. They peaked in 2022 at 260. They did 100K in 2023. And so far they've done 70K in 2024. And I asked them we went through this traffic matrix, and I asked them this question. I'm like, where are your deals, A, coming from? And B, how are you creating a consistent flow of business? And what we realized is that the entire business had one source. In the context of one traffic, it was all SOI. This could be social media. This could be organic. Could be it could be, whenever I talk about paid and organic, I always think of it as like from a digital perspective. I lump traditional into, door knocking, cold calls. When I think about traditional, I think about mailers. That's why we're doing a bunch of mailers on the back end of, traditional, on the back end of paid. This could be, what's another traditional method? We have door knocking, we have cold calls, we have expireds we could do, and the list goes on and on. So it's not necessarily we need 6 lead sources. What I say to clients is we need one really good paid source that works. We need one really great organic source, and we need one really great traditional source. That's how I've seen the best businesses and the best solo agents and the best small teams actually grow their business. Where the problem becomes is so many people rely on this paid source, but they don't have an organic source and they don't have a traditional source. Scalability in a business, consistency in a business, and I've consulted some of the largest teams, they have all 3. They don't tell you they have all 3 openly and publicly, but when you actually get under the hood of the business, they do a little, under organic, I would also say like partnerships is another form of organic. So what I mean by partnerships is like, you providing value to your lender, you providing value to your accountant, you providing value to the clients of your accountant, and then they kind of do that warm introduction. I would call that like a strategic partnership. So the problem is that too many agents try to start with the paid without first getting the organic and the traditional down. So that's why we say to a lot of clients, like, here is Triz, here is Sheridan. So organic, or if you want to, do great with organic and traditional, you're gonna be in the Triz program. If you already have organic and traditional locked in, and you want to kind of supplement the deal flow, we say that's where Sheridan comes in with, an ISA or ads. Because what's going to happen is if you don't have this locked in, the traditional and the traditional and the organic, you won't have the money to feed the paid. Now, there's a ton of different strategies you can do around paid, but generally paid is to build the pipeline. Organic is generally like the closest thing to what we would consider, you know, business that flows, I guess, freely, because you're not like you still have to work it, but it's not necessarily something that like it's not something you're trading time for money, and traditional is also trading time for money. Paid is a leverage point that allows you to grow. But then once you understand, okay, this is my traditional, this is my organic, this is my paid, what you then have to come back to is figure out, what do you want your lead flow matrix to look like? Do you want to have more of approach to your business where you say, okay, Cody, like I want an IG funnel where I build the database and, I eventually want to grow a team. So I want them to have leads to work in the future. Well, then that's probably going to be, you're probably going to run a buyer campaign on Facebook and IG, and you're going to build a database. You're going to get consistent with deal of the week. You're going to do that every single week. And, your leads are eventually going to convert. But cold traffic, anyone telling you any differently, cold traffic converts at 1 to 3%. Just is the way it is. Now, a performance max campaign is going to be a little different. You might say, hey, Cody, like I want to focus on less leads, but I want to go after more homeowners here. I might pay $50 to $100, a lead, but that lead is going to be A, more qualified, and B, higher intent, and C, it's going to be easier to have a conversation with them. Now, you're still going to have your skill component. So, you still might run into a bottleneck where you're like, it's like a lot of agents don't know how to set appointments. Like they're triggering sales resistance and they don't even know it, which that's where Triz comes in. And a lot of agents don't have a great listing presentation. So it's just because you get your foot in the door doesn't mean you're actually going to sell them. So that's where kind of like Triz would fall in here. But what we find with a performance max campaign is it's going to be less leads, but it's going to be higher intent. Phil, you had a question?
Yeah. Let me just, I was taking some pictures of your slides. So what starts first? Like, first of all, let me ask you, because you've been consulting with big teams, would you be able to tell me, because I'm kind of naive in this, what is the actual percentage you should say be spending on marketing? Like budget.
It's different. It's different. I'm gonna mute you here for a second. I'm getting feedback. It's different for every business. Like you have to, it becomes a risk tolerance conversation with yourself. And that's why I say before you start investing into paid sources, I always recommend finding a way to figure out, how do I do at least a deal a month with organic and traditional? I had a conversation with somebody in Triz the other day, and I said, like, look, like until you're doing a deal a month, like you're not going to do it through a paid source. You might if you're really good, but that's the paid is always the most difficult source to convert. I always say to clients from a, like I personally like to allocate 10 to 15% of my overall revenue, depending on my margins, to marketing. Now that if you if you go back to some of our old trainings where I I think Adam, one of our guys, Adam Stapley, is spending in the beginning he was spending like $300, $400, $500 a month. Now he's spending like $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And the reason that he's doing that is he's tracking, I call this the 5 key metrics. So there's 5 key metrics in a business that I think everyone should track if they're running lead gen. So the first metric that I recommend they track is cost per lead. And this is generally where people stop. They're like, oh, my cost per lead is, $10 a lead. And that's generally where they stop in their tracking. And this becomes a part of the issue. And then when I work with a team one-on-one, the first thing I say is, I don't really give a shit what your cost per lead is. What I want to know are the other 4 metrics. And if you're not tracking them, shame on you. The second one, I call this cost per CPAS. Cost per appointment set. If anyone's ever used Sisu, this essentially is like their large team, and the cost per CPAM is cost per appointment met, because in here lies skill. The fourth metric I get them to track is cost per client signed. So that metric would be like, okay, once I have a buyer agreement signed or I have a listing agreement signed, and then I have my CPA, my cost per acquisition, like my cost per client. So in any source that you spend money on, like I always say, okay, like, like I think most agents understand this, that like, in order to actually see if something's working, you need a 3 to 6 month runway for any source. And if you can't afford a 3 to 6 month runway, don't run the ad to begin with. Because like we spend on average anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 a month in ads. And the only reason I don't spend more is I don't have a large enough sales team in order to handle more than that. So when I talk about runway, I always say, like, say for example, you have, your average commission is 10K. I always say, try to invest at least 2x what one commission would cost you, because like that's how you dial it in. That's kind of what we recommend. I'm doing a deal a month through referrals and SOI. Yeah. So like, again, so you're doing a deal a month through referrals and SOI. You're in Triz. So now you have to make the decision. What's your traditional means? Are you going to do door knocking? Are you going to do cold calling? Are you going to start doing mailers? Are you going to start doing expireds? Like Jan, for example, Philly is doing mailers. So Jan's business, when you look at it, like Jan is set to do over, I think like 23, 24 million this year. And Jan's entire strategy is Zillow. He does his SOI, and then he does mailers. That's literally his business strategy. Zillow, SOI, and mailers. Jan on average right now, I think he's spending about 3 to 5K a month on mailers because he chose a farm. So like where you're like that's why Vic and I preach so much about skills, because like organic SOI, you're doing a deal a month with SOI and through referrals, but you don't have another source that's working. So one of the first questions when I get on a call with a team member, with the solo agent, I literally ask them, like, how are you primarily getting your business? Is it through sphere of influence, or do you have another source that's working? 99% of agents are going to say it's SOI, because some guru along the way said just work your SOI, but like it doesn't create consistency in the business. This is why so many agents are up and down year over year, because the world is filled with 2 types of people. Oh, what's happening here? Let's duplicate this. The world is filled with 2 types of people. Let's actually put this here. So if we look at the world as a whole, there's people we know, and then there's people we don't know. Now, like if we want money and we actually want to make income here, we need both. We need to chat with more people we know, and we need to chat with more people we don't know. The problem with that strategy of like just work your SOI is this. This really at the end of the day is like your SOI and referrals are people you know. And that will only bring you so much. This is why the top marketers, entrepreneurs in the world, they spend money on marketing to get you in front of more people that you don't know. It really is that simple. We complicate it because we hear gurus like that will be like, just work your SOI, just work your referrals. And, sure that can work, but, that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. I would much rather dial in a system for organic, which it sounds like you could probably like dial in your system even more. If you're doing a deal a month through SOI and referrals, there's probably something you're doing. Like, if you could potentially add another source here, like you could do strategic partnerships, Philly, or you could do mailers, but it becomes a source conversation. And when you understand that it's a source conversation, there's a ton of different opportunities. You just make your choice. It's like, okay, I got my SOI locked in. Now I need to move to traditional. Okay, what do I do around traditional? You have a choice. Do I either go traditional or do I go paid? I'm pretty sure if you chat with Jan, he started SOI, then he went to Zillow, and then he went to Mailer. So he did a 3. So Mailers becomes like your farm. A performance max campaign, like if you don't have Zillow in your area, or say for example, like Zillow is going to get you buyer leads. So it might not necessarily work. So like a performance max campaign on sellers. Like if I was parachuting personally myself into any local market, this is what I would do. I would do organic. So I do my SOI. If I didn't have an SOI, I would have to do social media. So assuming you have an SOI in your local area, I would do that. Then I would probably move to mailers and start my farm. And then I would do performance max campaigns to get sellers. That's primarily because that's probably what I would do. But like your mailer strategy, you need to have a runway of 3 to 6 months. And then, again, and then it becomes a skill conversation because, you can't like just send out a mailer and expect the mailer to just work. You have to know how to write copy that actually persuades people, that gets them to want to give you a call back. This comes down to like, something I chatted about, a good mailer strategy looks like this. And again, you got to remember, if you decide to do mailers, just remember that these are not opt-in leads. They didn't opt into anything. You sent it to them. So, if you don't get a response in the first month, you can't get mad because you sent it to a cold person. And again, so with the mailer strategy, if I were doing this, I would follow our OVO model. So what that looks like is this. Oh, that's not a circle. All good marketing, in my opinion, follows the OVO model. And people get mixed up when they think about OVO, and they don't actually do OVO the right way. I'm going to show you how to do OVO the right way. I'm going to share with you, if you don't know what OVO or if you've never heard of it, I'm going to share with you what that is. It's a never-ending cycle. So the O here stands for opt-in. So what an opt-in is like, like on a seller, it would be a name, an email, a phone number, and an address. Now, if you're finding that you're still not getting, like if your lead cost is around, let's call it $50 a lead, and you have a little bit of cost per lead room to wiggle with, what you might do is add some questions to the form. Because when you add questions, you increase intent. But that's your opt-in. Where people get mistaken here is in the value component. So all good marketing, this works for your funnels, this works for your mailers. When you have a mailer, you have to make the decision, like, what am I giving them of value that would even make them want to raise their hand to begin with? So like this could be like a PDF. This could be a video. This could be this could be like a webinar. If it's a mailer strategy, this could be like, like maybe you're hosting like a local garage sale. Maybe you're hosting a community event. You got to give them a reason to give you their information. The reason why so much marketing falls on deaf ears is one of two things. Either you're not targeting the right person, or your just ad sucks, or your mailer sucks. And people are like, oh, I get this mailer all the time. Do I want to sell my home? It's like, no, I don't want to sell my home, but I want this cool thing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make your offer. Now your offer needs to be unique. So we call this like our USP, our unique selling proposition. So what's unique about to a seller than what we're doing for some clients that run performance max ads is we call, rather than calling it a CMA, we call it a free pricing strategy session. And if you're in what's it called? If you're in Triz and you have access to our listing presentation, you know that, there's Vikram calls it, event-based pricing, event-based pricing, perceived market value, and then aspirational pricing. So essentially what you do in your free pricing strategy with your seller, it's like, hey, something we've been doing for some of the neighbors in the area is we've been actually doing a free pricing strategy session. We actually walk them through the 3 most important things they need to know in order to get their home sold above market value. For example, my client, Tom, we did this pricing strategy and they made the decision within 6 months to sell their home. And we sold their home for over 20% over list. And here's how we did this. If you want to learn more about how we do that, book a free pricing strategy session with me. And I'll walk you through the 3 strategies we share with all of our top clients. So from a marketing perspective, a lot of the stuff you learn inside of Triz around the ultimate appointment booking formula, around the listing presentation, around the buyer presentation, we leverage that language and we put it in the form of an offer. Another offer could be, this technically an offer could also be a webinar here. Like it could be like something, like a value, and like a webinar could be considered value, but it can also be considered an offer you're making to the marketplace. But when you follow the OVO model for marketing, then what happens further down the funnel is you get like, you recognize, okay, when I come back up here and I go traditional, organic, paid, I recognize that my organic, what you start to realize is like, wow, my organic doesn't even give people an opportunity to opt into anything. I've never given my, SOI an opportunity to opt in anything. And then you create a piece of content that allows them to opt in something. Then you deliver them value, and then you make the offer. OVO works for organic, OVO works for traditional, OVO works for paid. That model of opt-in value offer can be used in any form. Mailers, when you're making your cold calls, hey, just Cody here, calling from 123 Sheridan, like calling from Sheridan Street. It looks like at one point in time you requested some information around possibly, selling your property 123 Sheridan Street. And then what you do is I'm going to mute you again here, Philly. I'm getting feedback. Then what you do is you move them out of the conversation, what we call a trust-based opener, and you say, hey, I promised my clients I would, reach out, and you just name the client, and you use something like what we call like I have a buyer done right script. So, where you have some sort of like way to get them to opt in. So opt-in value offer works on your sales calls. Opt-in value works in traditional. Opt-in value offer works on organic. Opt-in value works on paid. So anyone have any questions about anything we went over today?
Well, with all your opt-in, it kind of like is reminding me of sort of like mini chat. Yeah. So that'd be like an organic, I guess, an organic way to do it. Social media, doing mini chat and getting someone to kind of like opt in by offering them a PDF of like I don't know, buyer's guide or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and getting their information.
Yeah, if you're doing social media, like, I think we've done a session on this before where we've talked about like good social media. Like, you don't even have to change anything in your social media. If you're producing video content, you can just literally just say, DM me the word, you just choose the word and you put that in the caption of all your videos. And then you'll start picking up people that you got to give somebody a reason to raise their hand. That's why value, and that's why like PDFs or like, it could even be like a local market report. It could be a case study. Like, like for example, value could also be like a case study. So you put together a document about how you recently helped a client, list their home for 20% over asking. And then and then it becomes real. That's all I got for you guys today. If you guys have any questions around kind of like, marketing, I'll kind of open it up for the next few minutes around any questions.
So you have actually been in and
Oh, you cut out there, although I didn't quite hear you. Billy, any last questions?
Thank you. I just meant I've been on and off, but yeah, I got some good nuggets. So thanks, appreciate it.
Sweet. Hey, anytime. Billy, any last questions before we take off here today?
No, I'm just feeling really grateful. This is gold. It's gonna kind of come together in my brain, but definitely having the 3 to 6 month runway, knowing that is very helpful. So there's no start and stopping.
Yeah, when you stop and start something, like it's kind of like, like the way I put it, and the way I say to any client that is looking into any marketing effort, I always say like it's like kind of going to the gym for like, a month and then being like, well, why didn't I get 6 packs? It's like, well, there's a ton of reasons why. Did you consume too many calories? Did you only went to the gym for 30 days? So giving yourself that runway is super important. So I'm glad that you got that out of there. So, well, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. If there's anything else you need, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll see y'all soon.